Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we've got another round of the OP06 format. Now that it's hit in North America, outside of Japan, the rest of the world, we've got OP06 matches. I'm so excited. This is a new one that people are talking about and somewhat interested in. Yamato, one of the more popular decks to come out of OP06. Several really cool archetypes that we're going to be able to show off in these videos, and Katakuri. So both players keeping these hands. And before we get into it, first of all, thank you so much for clicking on this, and thank you so much to these players for allowing me to record, and also Night and Day Games for allowing me to record in their store as well. The Yamato, a perfect turn one play for the deck if you're playing the Land of Wano build. Going to be playing that Momonosuke, as the YouTube has told me how to pronounce it. Playing that little guy. Can't rest him into the searching yet, but next turn will be able to. And so a little bit of throwing cards over here by our Katakuri player, but going to be able to play a turn one pudding, an excellent turn one option for this deck, similar to the Yamato. So I'm going to be looking at that top four and pulling a Sparrow, unless they have another pudding. Going to be passing the turn off to the Yamato. So the Yamato now at 3 Dawn. Probably, if I had to take a guess, going to commit one for the Momonosuke and looking for a Land of Wano type character, and then after that, it looks like they will put 2 on the Yamato and swing. So going to be grabbing a alternate Hiyori. We saw in that search that there was at least one Hody Jones, or Howdy Jones as I like to call it. Hody Jones put at the bottom of the deck. So very, very good sign for the Katakuri. And again, like I said, just swinging 7 over at main. Remember that the Yamato does have double attack, so got to really be thinking about in this matchup. And it looks like he's going to take it. So now going to 3 life at this point. The Yamato's activate main effect is online for future turns and future attackers. No other future attackers yet for the Yamato, but that'll change later in the game. The Katakuri now going to be swinging, starting off, getting rid of that Searcher, just a bunch power over it, so not worth countering out. And the Katakuri looks like they're swinging 6 and going to be 7 looking at this top life. And they're going to keep that life on top. Said, you know what, it's not like Hody Jones or anything like that. Not a trigger because you are part yellow. So might as well just keep it on top. You can have that in your hand. And it looks like they are going to take that. Can't exactly see what it is, but they'll play that Sparrow and pass with that on KO effect. Just a really, really good card, especially on your 3 or 4 Dawn turn as Katakuri. Definitely looking good on the Katakuri side in terms of how they're managing their turns and their Dawn. But now with Yamato at 5, we could see a couple different options. I do know in this list on the left side that he is playing the Dracula Mihawk from starter deck 12, so that could be an option that we see here as he swings 5 at lead. Going to be a 1k counter. Gadatsu there. Could also be that Shirahoshi that we see him put in the front, but he's going to be resting 2, probably playing that Hiyori right there. One of the new cards in OP06, going to be putting one of the life in hand. It's going to be a reject, so really, really good. And putting a card at the bottom. Checking a little bit of the rulings here. It looks like it's got to be on the top, so good job correcting. Remember that both players need to maintain the correct board state. It's also part of the Katakuri's job to remember that part as well. So good job by both players keeping it fair. And there's that Mihawk that I was talking about for 3 Dawn. Going to be putting a slash type character down of a cost of 4 or less rested, and it's going to be that Okiku. Kiku Nojo. I'm sorry, I've said it for like 3 months as Okiku. The Kiku Nojo with that excellent on KO effect to be able to get another life back since their opponent is at 3 or less life. So Katakuri now going into 6 Dawn turn. They don't have a Gadatsu, at least probably we can assume, because they did pitch one off of the counter on that 5k swing. Going to be thinking about what they want to do here. They could play a Gadatsu. We see they've shifted 1 Dawn and 5. A Gadatsu play could get rid of the Mihawk here, which would be a good character to get rid of, right? It's one less attacker on the life. So first going to be swinging 5 at lead and going to be countering out that new winner Shirahoshi right there. If you're wondering what that card is, one of the new winner cards of OP06 at your local stores, and going to be swinging 7 now. So going to be looking at that life, say, you know what did you put up there? And it looks like it has a trigger. I can't exactly tell what it was, but it looks like it is a trigger type life. So thinking about how many cards they have in their hand and saying, you know what, put it on the bottom. You're not going to see that until the end of the game. And they're going to be taking that life, and it's going to be a Nekomamushi. Nekomamushi is an excellent card to get off of trigger because it can't attack active characters. So with whatever they decide to play down, or assuming it is that Gadatsu, like I mentioned, that Nekomamushi is going to be able to battle that Gadatsu with some Dawn, even though it is an active character. So really, really cool card inclusion in this list, in my opinion. It's primarily either counter or off of the trigger. And so with this one being off of the trigger, just a really, really good option for the Yamato. I feel like Yamato's in a pretty good spot at this point. Going to be resting 4, maybe playing an Okiku of their own, or Kikunojo. Going to be playing, looks like Reject there. So going to be opting for the KO effect on Reject. Not something that we see too often. We usually see Reject being something that closes out games by taking an opponent's life, but the Katakuri player, more valuing getting rid of characters, kind of trying to maintain board state, because with the life manipulation of the Big Mom Pirates type, he's going to be able to get some life anyways, either gaining life through the 7 drop or taking away and gaining through the 10 drop. So Yamato now going into their turn. This should be 7 Dawn turn now, I believe. Got a couple options now with the Kikunojo, with the Dracula Mihawk available in there. With this Land of Wano build, we can probably assume that the Yamato is playing that OP06 Momonosuke. I'm trying to remember how you all in the comments told me how to pronounce it, because I'm not that far in the anime yet, but it could be reasonable to believe that they play that new blocker down and put the Hiyori in life to keep it alive, make sure it stays either in the life or in hand at that point. But starting out with the Kikunojo, 6k swing at life, gonna need a 2k counter. I guess it could be at the Perospero as well, not 100% sure, but either way it's gonna be a 2k counter Satori being used, and it looks like another 4 is being rested for another Kikunojo. Very, very good card. We could see him through the leader effect, because we did rest 4 Dawn. Going to be attaching 1 more and swinging 7 now with the Dracula Mihawk. So again, once your opponent is at 3 or less life, you can use the activate main leader effect, the second effect on the Yamato, and the 7k swing is going to hit, putting them at 2 life, and just going to be attaching the rest of the Dawn and swinging at either lead or the Perospero. I would assume that it's probably lead at this point. You can get the Katakuri to 0, and especially with all of these characters on board, you can apply a lot of pressure, but it's going to be a 2k and a 1k counter on that 7k swing. Not going to be taking life or losing any characters. So I really like this with the Yamato. The Yamato has been able to apply a ton of pressure through the trigger characters, right? And being able to consistently play down these characters either through by hand or the Dracula Mihawk effect. They can kind of ignore the Perospero, right? You don't want that Katakuri player to find a lot of the Big Mom Pirates pieces, and with that on KO effect, it really just helps them out find those 10 drop Big Moms and such. So going to be starting out swinging 5 at the Mihawk, saying, you know what, Mihawk did its job. I don't need to waste any counter on that. Don't want to give up 2k worth of counter, and so going to get that KO now at, I believe, 8 Dawn overall. They do have some 8 Dawn play options, including the 8-drop Katakuri, right? Could put something like the Okiku, or even a Hiyori, or their own Perospero up in the life, but also could attach one to the leader, swing 7, again, get that extra 1k boost on the leader, and then play that 7-drop Big Mom to tell your opponent, okay, you choose, either I gain a life or you lose a life right here. So really curious to see what the Katakuri player is going to choose. With one, you can get rid of a character, but with the other, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult. So attaching one of the Dawn and swinging 7 now, maybe thinking about swinging at the Okiku, but going to be looking at their own life and leaving it there on top, going to be swinging at life and taking it. It's going to be that Momonosuke off of the life, no trigger, but a little bit of counter in hand, and that 7-drop in. The Yamato player saying, you know what, you take it. You left that card on the top of your life, so give you a blind life at this point. You don't know what it's going to be. And so now going into the 9 Dawn turn, we'll see exactly what they do. Don't know if they've got any Hody Jones in hand, but this could be close to a Hody Jones turn. I do know that this list is very cool. I actually played against this player in a future round. The next round of this tournament, I played against this Yamato player. So pretty cool list. It looks like they have a secret rare Zoro in this deck. So we saw the hand a little bit, had that 200 million volts of Maru and a Momonosuke, and also the secret rare Zoro that came out in OP06. So the secret rare Zoro is really interesting because this is a really curious spot if you're Yamato, because you want to make sure that you don't lose next turn, right? But if that Zoro sticks, you could probably really likely go for game. But with the Katakuri being at the 10 Dawn turn, one of the things that could get crazy on that is they could immediately dump a life and just continuously swing at face. So going to be playing that Momonosuke there and going to immediately be searching off of this for Land of Wano, maybe looking for the older version of Momonosuke. It looks like they had an alternate Zoro in that search, and it looks like they are going to find that new blocker in the Land of Wano package there. So going to be putting that in hand, and I imagine put it down on the field. It looks like they've got some counter in hand with it looks like 200 million volts tomorrow, not necessarily counter, but they do have the new You're the One That Should Disappear in hand, which is if you do not know, the new OP06 card that is 0 cost, discard a card and gain 3,000 power. So really good options in there. We do know that Zoro, not having any counter at all, got to be really careful. I think Zoro is really tempting at this point, but you really have to think like, okay, especially if a life gets trashed, if I play Zoro, I won't. Actually, you can't even play Zoro right now because you used 2 Dawn and it costs 9. So going to be using leader effect to attach those 2 rested Dawn that you used for the Momonosuke to the Okiku and swinging 8. It looks like it was at the Perospero and just trying to clear board a little bit at this point. And there's that 10-drop Big Mom like I was talking about. The Perospero on KO effect, just so good at trying to find your pieces. And so with that reveal, this is going to be a little tough. Going to be swinging 7 at lead, and they're going to be taking it 2 life right here. Any triggers on that? It looks like they need to take another one, mentioning that it's double attack. Silly Mr. Blinks over there on the right. But anyways, going to again be swinging with the Kikunojo, but this time swinging Bear 6, and it's going to be a 2k counter to go to 7, and they have 5 Dawn left. Going to be that Momonosuke getting put down and putting the Hiyori on top of the life. I do like this play. You add another life that is potentially going to get discarded, but also you put a blocker down to effectively stop more swings, and you dwindle down at their life. So you've got a really good shot if you survive this turn to potentially get out of it. You've got 200 million volts of Mario in hand if they play any Brulees, if they play any Sanjis, right? So you're feeling decently all right, especially because they didn't use that pudding to swing at your life. You feel pretty good about living this turn that, taking the little baby searcher there, Momonosuke. So now at this point, and you saw the 10-drop reveal. So here's one of the things. If you know that there's a 10-drop reveal, the Katakuri leader can't do anything. The only thing that it can do is swing at lead and make you rest your Momonosuke blocker, because the 10-drop Big Mom is going to require all done. So all these other characters will be swinging face. So it's a really, really interesting spot for the Katakuri player, where the Yamato player doesn't really need to worry about anybody else besides the 7-drop Linlin that's on the field. One of the things that they can do, though, is the Katakuri player can swing 5 at lead with leader, maybe tempting the blocker Momonosuke right there to rest as a quote-unquote free block, but then use the 7-drop Linlin to KO the Momonosuke. So then you get rid of that blocker. So just like I was saying, you know, doing that quote-unquote free rest, we'll see exactly how the Katakuri player reacts to this move, and it looks like they're going to be swinging with the Linlin, and it's going to be at that Momonosuke like I was mentioning. I think that's a really, really good play right there, but with the You're the One That Should Disappear card, going to be trashing in Okiku or Kiku Nojo and keeping that blocker alive. So the 10-drop comes down to Dawn now in the Katakuri's life, and 1 for the Yamato. So now going into 10 Dawn on both sides right here. Going to be curious how this goes. A top deck Hody Jones could be huge right here, I think. Probably about 3 or 4 cards in hand for the Katakuri player at this point, and 1 Dawn left. What do you do at this point if you're the Yamato? It's a really, really curious spot. Do you go for the bodies on board, or do you go for the life at this point? I think you're probably, oh man, this is kind of tough, because you don't know if they have another 10-drop Big Mom in hand, and if they had another 10-drop Big Mom and they survive like a couple of these characters, right? It's going to be really hard to get out of this. So putting the Yamato with Banish off of that Onami, going to be using 200 million volts tomorrow to boost a lot of power on this Yamato. So this Yamato is getting a 3,000 power boost, going to be swinging 8 at least, with 6 Dawn left, I think is the math at this point. So 6 Dawn left right here. I think what they're trying to do is go for game in this turn, but also trying to map out exactly where they should put all of this Dawn. You know that through the leader effect, you're going to have 2 Dawn rested to put somewhere on the Kiku Nojos or even the Momonosuke. I think the Momonosuke is probably critical in your game plan in order to win this game. One thing that you do need to happen, though, more likely than not, and it looks like they're attaching so much Dawn. They are attaching all, I don't even know how much that is, but it's Banish, double attack, no Sanji, no Amande, and with, it looks like 2 active Dawn left. Gonna first be swinging 7. Now 7 is a really, really crazy number into Katakuri because it forces 2 cards, either a You're the One That Should Disappear with a trashed card in hand, or a 2K and a, wait a minute, that was a 7K swing. That was a 7. There might have been another card that was trashed in there. Hold on, I gotta make sure. It looks like there's actually 2 cards. It looks like there's 2 cards right there. Never mind, I'm done. Anyways, going into this, it forces 2 cards through the Kiku Nojo swing. So you attach maybe another one to the other Kiku Nojo, get another 2 cards, and then use leader effect to attach the rest of 2 to the Momonosuke to go for game. So here's another 7K swing right now, and looks like it's actually, they're actually just going to be using the leader effect to bring it on the Kiku Nojo and swinging 9 for the game. It looks like they ended up getting it, the Yamato taking the game from Katakuri. And one of the things that I really love about what happened with the Yamato game and how they played that out is they went super aggressive. I feel like in a lot of different matchups, the more time that Katakuri has, the better off Katakuri is, because repeatedly playing those life manipulation effects that they get at such high dawn is really, really good for the decks. So that's going to be all for this one. There's no deck list for this because with Santa Clara regionals and a lot of our players going to Santa Clara in the near future, several of these videos before the tournament will not be showing deck lists, just out of respect for those players as they're cooking up their decks trying to do well in the tournament. So I will link, as usual, in the comments below a good Yamato list that is Land of Wano and a good Katakuri list that I've seen in OP06. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Thank you.